Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bright Ideas podcast. I am your host, as always, Trent Deersmid. And like we always do, my goal in each and every episode is to help you to shine a light on what is working in the world of e-commerce so that you can take away what I call actionable golden nuggets and implement them in your business right after listening to the episode. And the way that I do that is I bring smart folks onto the show to share with me their perspective, their experience, and their knowledge. And today we are going to do exactly that. My guest is a fellow by the name of Scott Needham. Scott, thank you so much for coming to join me on the show.
Hey, yeah, thanks. Glad to be here.
So for folks who maybe aren't familiar with who you are, let's start with that. Who are you and what do you do?
So who I am the CTO of two Amazon businesses. One of them is just a seller account. Like most of people listening are probably, interested in selling on Amazon. That's really what I spend most of my time doing is running the company BuyBoxer, but mainly like just building automation for selling. And so, I see something that we do well and I'm like, well, let's automate that and do this 100 times. And then the second is we spun off a business that's more of a services business. It's called Valence. And that's where we try and identify all the ways that Amazon owes sellers a reimbursement. And then we recoup those reimbursements. That's something that we built for our own account and realize its value and offer it to others.
Okay. And so your Amazon business is a pretty sizable business. Your annual revenue over the last 12 months is in, if you're allowed to disclose it, is in what range? And I think you can disclose it.
Sorry, Zoom just like...
It did. It just paused. So let's do that one again.
Yeah.
So folks know the size of the business that you're the CTO of. What's the annual revenue?
65 million.
Okay. So that's
what we did last year. Yeah.
Pretty decent.
We started in 2012 and, the first few years was like crazy growth. Mm-hmm. And when you realize, when you work on Amazon and you work your tail off, you can double the size of your business, which is awesome. If you're in retail, growing 5-10% a year is great. But, and then, the truth is the last 3 years, our growth is, much slower as we've tried to diversify and think of different ways. But that's what we have 150 employees and mainly wholesale. I don't know.
Yep. Okay. So a very sizable reseller business. So I know so the way I discovered Scott, by the way, folks, is he had posted an Ask Me Anything thread in the Reddit forums, and it was a pretty interesting discussion. And prior to that, I didn't know who Scott was, and that's why I invited him to be on the show. One of the things that really caught my interest, Scott, was your extensive use of Keepa data in your business. So can you tell us, why is Keepa such a big deal for you guys, and how are you using it?
So, we discovered Keepa just as an extension. You put on the Chrome extension, all of a sudden it gives you like this view of a product page. You see its history. It's just all inline, amazing data. And then like 2 or 3 months, someone's like, well, just download that data. And I was like, oh no, you can't do that. And then I just Googled it and it's like, oh, you actually can. They actually sell access to their data. And when you have that, when we got that data, it's just like your creativity is as far as you can take it. I think the first thing that I built in was I loved how reliable they were with Amazon retail as a seller. They were, they just built a whole picture of how much Amazon keeps in stock and, where they're at. I had actually built scrapers by myself and I kind of failed at that. Nothing like super reliable. I just rather pay someone else to do that for me. And then we just pull down that data and we use it for creating reorders or even initial orders. of products, because we just want to avoid Amazon retail at all expense, because they're operating at a different game. If they see Walmart drop prices, or if anyone out there breaks MAP, they'll break MAP without even thinking twice. They don't have to make money. And so we were determining that for every 10% in stock rate that Amazon was keeping, whether it was 50% in stock rate, 90% in stock rate, our gross margin went down. Don't confuse this, that you can make money on products that Amazon has, and that will kind of be like a false, you'll want to chase that because you're like, oh, we beat Amazon on this product. But on the whole, as you scale, it's really not going to work out for you. Maybe one supplier with one product it works, and that's good. Make that exception. But I would advise people, if you're going to if you're going to try and scale in any way, that just avoid them and find the holes, and Keepa, more than anything out there, has helped us find those holes.
So let's talk about product sourcing for a minute. Folks who have been following me for a while know that we're pretty systematic about the way we source products, but I suspect it's actually quite a bit different than how you do it. So we'll go through a process where we'll have virtual assistants looking for existing reseller accounts on Amazon that meet certain criteria. Then we'll use software tools to extract the products from each of those stores into these huge spreadsheets. Then the spreadsheets filter all of the data to bring the gold, so to speak, to the top. These are the products that we think, hey, if we could actually source this at a given margin, that it would be a profitable product for us to carry. And then we reach out to those particular brands and trying to establish relationships. And that has led us to sell, not 65 million, but a number of millions per year on Amazon. I'm guessing your product sourcing strategy is quite a bit different than that.
Yeah, we've had to get creative. We've done some of that same strategy that you say, and it's great. It works. You can see, find where other people are finding success, and you can either piggyback or sometimes you can even beat them on price. But one of our more latest techniques is actually using Keepa again. They have one feature that returns every ASIN up to 100,000 in a given category. So, take toys. We will download the top 100,000 toys, and then start getting data off of each of those ASINs and kind of build a map of all that's on Amazon. We're like, okay, Disney, they have 2,000 ASINs that have a brand of Disney, and obviously that one's kind of too big to handle. But we find what we consider, are like a niche brand, and then we start to we filter. We get more data around them, and we filter around that, such as how many active FBA sellers are on these brands. And we usually find the sweet spot is around 2 to 4. If there's just one FBA seller, it's almost always themselves selling. And obviously they won't be interested in new Amazon resellers. But if you find, ones that have on average across their product line, 2 or 3, those are usually really good indicators of a newer company that is not super established, that maybe is interested in a slim, 3 or 4 authorized Amazon resellers. And that's kind of how we've done our sourcing, just building this map and of all the brands that are doing well on Amazon, and then trying to add data to that of sometimes we'll even say what's the average price of their product, what's its average size.
Can you also use Keepa to say, show me within this map that you're talking about? So let's say we'll use the toy example. So you've gone first and you said, okay, give me the 100,000 SKUs in the toy category. So now we've got that list. Then you're saying, well, let's narrow that down to all of the ones that have only 2 to 4 FBA sellers. Okay, so now we have a subset of that list. And can you then say, let's show me all of the companies in that list that have had a sales increase of X or more in the last year across all of their products?
We have not. I haven't done like a sales increase. That would be interesting.
Could you do that?
Say what? I
Could
mean,
you do
you could
that?
look at if you average the sales rank, you know,
Yeah.
the truth is, I mean, like the way I see it, like Keepa gives kind of a historical map of, you know, you got the sales rank data over time, and you know, you could average that out. You could say like, okay, Q4, what was someone's sales rank of 2017 versus 2018, and you could probably come up with some interesting deltas to figure out if someone's jumping up or jumping down. Then again, I would argue, be like, well, I think if you filter efficiently, you're going to come down to a list of maybe only 20 to 40 suppliers, something that's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
And you could filter it down further, but I think we've managed it. It's like, this is a list of 40. We can do this in a few days of work, you know, figure out and do the due diligence on each one of them to see if there's an opportunity. I think that's a very interesting way to filter it further. And there's probably ways that I haven't even thought of yet.
So walk us through then as best you can. So after you've gone through, again, using the toy category, you've got the 100,000 SKUs, then you've narrowed it down to those that have 2 to 4 FBA sellers. What would be the next step of the filter for you?
Well, you need to jump in. You need to be looking at their products. I mean, I didn't say this in that filter, that we also look at Amazon's in stock rate. You know, you look at, like, is there one FBA seller is like, okay, now is Amazon, you know, largely present on this brand or like completely absent? Okay. And sometimes you'll see that maybe they're like 10%. Maybe they grab a few SKUs, they get them through a distributor or something. And then there's still a longer tail of opportunity. We actually do this. We designed it for this alone. We actually designed it to identify small and light. So I would argue that we probably are bigger in the small and light domain than anyone out there. I can't qualify that, but I know when Small and Light came out, how big we were going in it. And that's why we built this map, is to find the companies that had products that fit the Small and Light dimensions. If you're familiar with that program, where like the fulfillment fees in Small and Light are usually about $1 or less. And you ship to different fulfillment centers, and they kind of have a few different criteria. But we have, you know, $1 on a competitive, well-selling product is a big deal.
Now, I think if I remember correctly, in your Reddit thread, you said that Small and Light ended up having some problems for you. Was that right? Or was that against where you were only stocked against Amazon?
So that's where we got too close to the sun. I think our first few months of Small and Light was like awesome. We were finding a ton of opportunities. Now, this is 2-3 years into Small and Light. There are other people that are doing it effectively. But our first month, we went really big into it, and we actually started beating Amazon. And so we started to invest more in Small and Light and against Amazon. And then, you know, 3-4 months later, we were like, oh, our gross margins are turning south. We kind of got excited when we found a brand or two that we were beating Amazon retail and getting, you know, Small and Light, you can move through like units, a lot of units. It's not uncommon to see, you know, 20 to 50 to 100 sales a day in the Small and Light products, because you're really finding, you know, the fast movers, and that extra $1 that you have, you're beating everyone. That's how it was at the time. Right now, I don't know if it's quite as Wild West as that. But when we found a brand that we were beating Amazon, we started putting a green light to buying against Amazon all over the place. And that's where Small and Light really got after us. And so we started to, like, you know, it started to be a poorer performing part of our inventory. And now we've like slowly brought it back to where it's actually overperforming relative to its investment. So yeah.
Okay. So in just a minute, I'm going to ask Scott a question about where they're buying their products from and how they're buying their products. But first, I want to bring you a quick message from our sponsor. Our sponsor for this particular episode is Payability. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you have the right product, you have the right Amazon strategy, but you're a little bit shy on the cash? Well, everyone who's been selling on Amazon for a while knows that that happens. And so Payability is a financing company on a mission to give e-commerce sellers fast, flexible access to capital. Approval is based on your account health and your sales performance. So there's no credit checks, and you can get your money in less than 24 hours. If you're tired of banks not taking you seriously because you're a small business selling online and you want to get your FBA inventory in before the competition does, go ahead and visit brightideas.co/payability or click the link in the description and you'll get a $200 sign-on bonus and discounted fees. Again, that is brightideas.co/payability, spelled PAYABILITY. All right, Scott. So where do you guys buy your stuff from? Because as a reseller, we can buy from the brand or we can buy from distributors or both. Do you walk me through what's been most successful for you?
So what's probably defined our product mix is actually distributors. We have, when you use automation to judge bigger catalog sizes, that's how distributors have really allowed us to get a ton of ASINs. You probably will get slightly better margins if you have a direct relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Distributors, they add their essentially what their service is they have a bigger catalog and you're paying anywhere from 5 to 10% above cost.
Mm-hmm.
But we've really leveraged these huge catalogs and analyzed, okay, of these 100,000 SKUs, what are the top 1,000 in sales rank? And then of those 1,000, which ones are profitable? How many FBA sellers are on each one of them? And, we've been able to leverage each of these categories. It's really easy with a distributor when they cover a category really well. You can jump in a big way. And just, if you have, let's say, money, you have plenty of money. Say you're using Payability and you've got plenty of money, but you want to increase your catalog size. I think distributors is one of the fastest ways to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, there's some catches. Some distributors will have a few of their suppliers that will be very picky about Amazon
Mm-hmm.
sellers and even on MAP. So you still have to pay attention to those same principles. But the types of products that you have access to is just a lot bigger.
Do you buy from UNFI?
Yes.
Okay. So UNFI, in their catalog, if you had to guess, how many SKUs do you think are in their catalog? It's got to be hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, it's definitely not one of our bigger distributors, and we made a lot of mistakes buying from them through, sometimes we've bought products without even looking at them, and I've tried to really push us away from that, because that's how you end up with a wheelbarrow in your warehouse, like oversized products. And I think Unify, they have a lot of grocery, right?
Yep.
Well, our Unify first shipment came in and they're like, well, where's your freezer? We're like, what are you talking about?
Oh.
Well, there were some cold storage products that came through. And so that's one problem of trying to scale things and using just a machine for a process that a virtual assistant would be much better at doing,
Yeah. So what I want to do here, if we can, is I want to talk a little bit about the process that you're using. So I just used UNFI as an example, but you get a big price list. It has 100,000 SKUs in it. The software that we're using is something called Price Checker 2 to analyze that particular price list. Do you use the same software, or did you build something on your own?
I built something on my own. At first I thought it was really unique, but like, no, I bet you Price Checker does exactly the same kinds of things. You know,
Yeah.
you put in do you use UPCs?
I believe so. I've never done it personally. People on my team do it for me.
All right.
So
Yeah.
I have zero
Well,
personal
so a
experience with it.
UPC can match to multiple
Yeah.
ASINs.
Yeah.
And so the software that we've built in house, this is probably like 7 years ago. Price Checker may not have existed back then, and so kind of out of necessity, we built it. And so like a UPC matches to different ASINs, and then you essentially choose which one of those has the sales rank and the profit margin, and any other criteria that you want to kind of design around, like if it has like poor reviews,
Mm-hmm.
or if Amazon's on it, you can try and like filter that stuff out. And so yeah, we'll take those 100,000 SKUs and then just create like 2,000 listings immediately. And
So you would out of 100,000 SKUs, you would expect to be able to find 2,000 products that would be profitable for you?
Yeah, that's probably about it. That's about it. I know some companies that have like 60,000. One distributor has 60,000 UPCs, and we probably have about 5,000 from them. So it's roughly 1/10 or maybe a little bit less.
So let's dive a little deeper into that. So let's talk about margins. What type of gross margin, when you're buying from a distributor, are you shooting for an 18-19% gross margin, or are you just doing it at 10? How much?
I think our minimum is about 15%.
15. Okay. And then the next thing is, so these 5,000 SKUs, what is your minimum threshold in expected profit per month per product? Like, are you going to carry a product that'll, like, I'm trying to understand the minimums. Like we'll go down to a product that makes us $50 a month or $30 a month, or what does that look like?
Well, we operate from just kind of like a weeks of cover. We do one, essentially like a test buy. We'll buy like 3 units or 6 units or 12 units, very mm-hmm. small. And we let our existing sales really define the future of that product. Did we make money off of it? And what was its sales velocity? If it sells, 2 a day and it's doing it at 20% gross margin, we will, our systems will catch that and see its velocity and then order, 4 to 6 weeks of cover based off of that. If we are, if we're running low on inventory. And, because I mean, there's different ways to.
Again, let me jump in with a follow-on question. So let's say, you got these 5,000 of the 60,000 where you're like, okay, there's enough margin. So what I'm hearing is you didn't necessarily filter those 5,000 to see what their sales velocity was. Instead, you guys decided to make very small orders for 5,000 different SKUs. And then you looked at the actual data. So you could have bought stuff that just wasn't going to sell because you didn't pre-filter sales velocity. You arrived at sales velocity data as a result of your test buy. Is that correct?
We do use sales rank.
Okay.
The Amazon category sales rank. I could tell you that for toys, we buy up to about 300,000. So that's, for some people, that's very long tail. And because of that, and we were realizing, but we find sales in the 300,000s, maybe it's 6 a month, but usually the long tail actually has slightly better margins.
Yeah, I would think so, because there's less competition.
Yeah. But there's also a higher chance of that product just getting stuck for a little bit longer. So yeah. I'm not going to say it's like rosy out in the 300,000 land, but because of that, we just about a month ago we kind of actually reduced our rank band a little bit. I think toys was at 350. We moved it to 300 just to reduce the chances of something getting stuck.
Yep. Okay. So in taking this approach, one could grow their catalog really quite quickly as long as you had enough capital to be able to fund the inventory, from what it sounds like.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that. I mean, like, we don't, an initial order, I don't think we're ever going more than like 1,000 new SKUs at once. That's pretty big for us.
So that's actually a good point. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So you're dealing with a distributor. They're giving you their price lists. I'm guessing that at some point you're saying, hey, I've got this PO for you, and it's going to be 1,000 different products. Are you using that to negotiate better pricing? You must be.
Absolutely. Distributors, the first time you go to them, they definitely can go down, and they will. Sometimes they'll be like, if you're doing 50,000 a month with us, we'll take off 5% of your entire PO. And that's fairly big. The bigger you get, the more 5%, gives you a significant margin.
Yeah. So when you are analyzing the price list to begin with, let's say it's a brand new distributor that you have no history with. I know that probably doesn't happen for you anymore because you're probably dealing with all of them, but at some point.
There's a few.
So you aren't yet seeing the best pricing. When you're analyzing the price list, do you just assume that you're going to get a 5% discount and do your analysis with that 5% discount baked in? So then you're coming up with this PO and you're saying to your sales rep, hey, I'm going to send you, a $300,000 PO, but you need to give me 5% off for it to work for me.
So we actually have 2 layers of analysis, I guess you could say. We run the price list once, and say 100,000. We actually create SKUs on listings that may not be exactly at profit that we want today, but they're close. So we don't order everything on a SKU that on a list that we create, but what we do is by creating that SKU, we bring it in our system, and we're able to see that trend over time. And if it all of a sudden becomes profitable, our system's already ready. We've already ran the list, so we're a little bit what's the right analogy? But we have a wider basket upon SKU creation, and then we narrow it when we're actually creating the purchase order. So something could be at break even, but it's such a good rank, we'll still create the SKU because we know we have access to it. And in a month's time, a lot can happen. People can stock out, whatever the reason, and we may invest in it later down the line.
So you say create the SKU. I'm assuming that that's some type of a reference to an internal process that you guys have. What does that mean?
That's creating the listing on Amazon. That's submitting a feed to Amazon where you have,
So this product isn't even on Amazon yet. Is that? I'm not following.
No. What I'm saying is we're matching with an existing product on Amazon, but let's see. Sometimes there's advantages to doing this because sometimes you can't create a SKU, whether it's restricted or whatever. But our initial funnel is just it's just a wider basket, and it just submits the feed to Amazon of the product, whatever SKU process that you have, whether it's your identifier and then like a product ID. And so we submit that, and so we're ready to go. The moment that hits our warehouse, the SKU is already ready to scan and go in.
Okay.
And then there's a separate process in the middle where we actually create the purchase order. So we kind of separate those processes a little bit to kind of make the most of running a list, and then being a little bit more judgmental when we're actually putting money on it.
So let me feed this back to make sure that both myself and the audience are understanding what you're explaining. So you're getting this price list. You're doing an initial analysis of it. From that analysis, there will be a subset of the products in the price list that basically get a thumbs up. You will then create the SKU, to use your terminology, by submitting a feed into Amazon. Now, I'm still a little bit confused on that because all of these products already exist on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So there's product listings that are already there. So I'm not quite sure why you're creating the SKU. So bear
Yeah.
with me. And then, and if you want to dive in on and help to clarify that, that would be good. And then the second part is, once you've created this SKU, the thing I don't quite get, that then in some way, shape, or form helps you to figure out what your actual PO is going to be. So I know the audience doesn't get it yet, or maybe they do, but I don't get it yet. So
right. No, I'm sure half of them have the same thoughts that you. You can't ship a product into Amazon until you have a SKU created. Until on Amazon you have that listing.
Okay. I now know what you mean.
Yeah. I do use those words interchangeably. And so on the first run through of a list, we just create all those listings.
Got it.
And to make it so, should this product show up at our warehouse, it's good to go.
Yep.
And but I would bet a purchase order, we probably only send in on half of those SKUs that we've created on the first round.
Yep. Okay.
There's a chance, and then this definitely happens, is the second purchase order, a few more of those that we made on our first round get caught in our second purchase order.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. All right. Now, in our pre-interview, we talked about ways to negotiate for better margins. So I want to make sure that we turn that stone over and look for all the worms that are underneath it. You talked about obviously having large purchase orders puts you in a position of negotiation. Do you also do things like so one of the guys in my mastermind actually works for a distributor. And he was talking to me about the importance of promotional schedules. So when you know the term is promotional calendar. So a given distributor carries a list of brands, and those brands all have promotional calendars with that distributor when their deals or their BOGOs or whatever it is that they're going to run happen. And then he says you really need to buy during those windows for those brands' products to be able to get that better pricing. Is that something that you guys have done, or are there other ways that you're able to get better pricing?
Sure. Certainly, sometimes we chase those promotions. I know, I believe it's it's not gift. What is that category? It's not stationery. Party supplies. I know party supplies is part of this consortium where like all the companies together, we get a rebate at the end of the year from like how much, if we buy $100,000 in party supplies, we get maybe like a $3,000 or $4,000 check rebate.
Okay.
And so like we do chase those, and then we start to build that into our pricing. And then there are some distributors that are like, very like, calendar based. And the truth is we do pull the trigger on some of those, but we haven't really designed a system around that. And we try and go for the everyday price because we're concerned about like, replenishing inventory.
Yeah.
On a timely basis.
Yeah.
And so we put in its everyday price, and then when a deal comes in and we see it and it's in front of our face and we know it's already a good product, we'll just deepen how this one opportunity on this month, and we'll buy a little bit deeper to take advantage of that.
And just so people have perspective on your comments, how many SKUs do you have in your catalog? It's a big number.
So right now, FBA products that are in fulfillment centers, we're at 80,000.
Okay, so let that sink in for a minute, folks. At 80,000, you are not looking at any one SKU individually with human eyes, right? I mean, everything is systematized and automated, and that's how you ended up with a wheelbarrow showing up, and you're like, "What the hell? It's a wheelbarrow."
Yeah. I've got a lot of those horror stories. I really try and put a process into before an initial order, someone at least looks at it, because sometimes Amazon doesn't have the right dimensions. If you try and key off of their dimensions, they don't know yet because no one submitted it. But maybe it has a good sales rank because of some merchant sellers. So I would say, we do have a distribution capabilities, we do get our hands on the product eventually, and we can see it, and they can click a button that says like, okay, never order this again. I don't want to have to box this desk. And sometimes like we get really awkward stuff, and I'm always pushing, like, if something's hard to ship, like, that's not our bread and butter. We want the small, like I said, like small and light. That's just how you pack more value in smaller spaces, and you're investing in less boxes.
Okay. So there's two more ways that you use Keepa data that I want to talk about before we finish up today. And we've been a fair amount of time so far, so we'll try and blast through these in a shorter period of time if we can. One of them is, you mentioned to me in our pre-interview that Keepa does play a role in helping you to maintain a relationship with the brands that you're buying directly from. Did I get that right?
Oh yeah.
So tell us about that.
In a few ways. One, we kind of like pull down Keepa's data on reviews and historic sales rank to show loud vehicle, to show movement on a particular ASIN. So and then we return that to our vendors and our suppliers in a report. We call it our Amazon Business Report. And those are a few features, but another one is we give them an estimate of all the activity that's happening on Amazon. We'll tell them, okay, we've analyzed your 30 ASINs, and we have found that this seller, Joe Schmo, has 10 ASINs in FBA, and he's competing very well. He's winning the buy box sometimes. And then we find out that this other unauthorized seller or authorized seller is on all 30 of the ASINs, but he's not even competitive because he's priced out. He's like $10 too expensive. And so what we help is distill, and we give them an estimate sales ratio of what's happening on Amazon. Okay. Because sometimes they're working with brick and mortars, and they don't know which ones are like big on Amazon and really like pushing their product through their stores or not. And so we just give them a picture of like, this is what's happening on Amazon. And Keepa gives you the offers. They give you the offers page. As someone that has scraped data on Amazon, I know that they protect the offers page more than the detail page.
Okay. And for I'm going to put myself in the layman category. If I was to go look and sign up with Keepa to buy their data, there's no interface, there's no presentation layer. I mean, I'm literally just buying a data feed that I then have to build. Do I pump it into my own database and then write queries against it, or how am I making use of this data?
Okay, they do have an interface that allows like some searchability. I haven't used it a lot, but for example, before this phone call, I was like, okay, let me get a little bit more familiar. You can do some sales rank analysis just with their user interface. It's not completely beautiful. I would say, Jungle Scout probably beats it in terms of like, its UI friendliness. Yeah. But you can go through their data. But yes, if you want to develop software on it, you have to pay them money, anywhere from like $20 to $1,000, depending on how much data you want to pull. And they do have a very great description of that data and how to use it. Let's see. And we just use a database, a SQL database, and have kind of mapped what data we want from them, put it under our database, and then we kind of create our own queries.
Okay. So the second question, which I think you kind of answered already in the first question, was how does Keepa play a role in helping you to uncover and remove unauthorized sellers? So in the event that you didn't fully answer that, let's make sure we don't skip past that one.
So the thing is you always want to know like which ones to worry about. If you have a exclusive or semi-exclusive relationship, you know that unauthorized sellers coming in can really hurt the profitability on that. And so you just need to know which ones to worry about. And it's usually, 1, 2, or 3. They may have 30 unauthorized sellers, but most of them just aren't of consequence. And so it helps us find the 3 that are of consequence. And then we kind of do some research to find out who they are, where they're sourcing the product. And with the brand's permission, we will start sending them messages trying to, let them know about what the brand wishes for their Amazon platform.
Okay, I want to unpack that a little bit. You said there that it helps you to, for the sellers that are of consequence, it helps you to figure out who they are and where they're sourcing from. How does Keepa figure out those two things?
Well, I'm saying we have to do some of our research is actually off of, it's more of like a Google research.
Got it. Okay.
We'll, if they have merchant offerings, we could find out what state they're from. Sometimes they have a website or contact information.
Wouldn't you just look at their store and look at their products and figure out an FBM product and place an order, and then when you can see where it was shipped from when it arrives?
You don't even have to buy it. A lot of times FBM products tell you ships from, Indiana, ships from this state.
Oh, okay.
There's actually here's a little tip. One thing that you can also do is send them a seller message with a link. This is probably, I don't know, this may be in a gray area. I don't know, but we've actually had no success with it. But I know we've been phished before. Someone sends a seller message to you saying like, hey, you're selling this brand. Click here to get authorization. Well, that clicking is tracking your IP address, and they're able to locate you. So I actually, we sent 1 or 2 messages trying to do that. Didn't have success, but I know it's happened to us. And so be aware of that. It's in the buyer seller messaging. No, not the buyer seller. It's when you just want to ask a question about a product.
Okay.
That kind of messaging.
You also said that where brands give you permission, you'll message the other sellers saying, hey, you're unauthorized. How are you messaging them? Because one seller is not allowed to message another seller through the Amazon platform. That's a TOS violation.
It's definitely, you caught me red-handed. I think it's a very gray hat tactic. I mean, you see it happen all the time.
Okay.
But truthfully, it's not as effective as what's happening more and more now is brand registry is playing a role in identifying and saying like, hey, this person is violating the trademark. We get those communications with our huge catalog size. We get 1 or 2 a day, and they're very serious.
Yeah.
And brand registry has teeth that we're scared of.
Yeah.
And because of like the TOS, we truthfully, we try and go above board and like want to comply with like Amazon's policies across the board, because in the end game, like we want our accounts to stay in good standing.
Yeah.
And so we have about 15 brand registries, and we're really pushing like towards that route.
Okay. Last question before we wrap then, seller fulfilled Prime. Are you using it?
Yeah. We are actually, they've made it a lot easier if you are doing any merchant type fulfillment. We have a lot of hazmat products that we can't send into FBA. And so what we've done in our warehouse, we have maybe a few $100,000 of inventory in hazmat. And we were able to turn on seller fulfilled Prime on a region because it has to be shipped ground. Our warehouse is in Indianapolis, and we tell Amazon, we only want to ship ground. And so give us the 2-day ground region around Indianapolis, which happens to be 57% of the population. So if you you go into your shipping templates, and I actually had someone on Amazon walk me through it. I think I know a few things about Amazon, but like still, like I'm really scared when it comes to certain things on Amazon when you're doing it at scale. And you build a shipping template that says like, okay, this is a ground, prime, and it has to be a 2-day radius of our warehouse. And the reason you should do that, if you're already doing, fulfilled by merchant, is for, a certain subset of the population of the United States, you will have a better offering. You will now be prime. You'll have that badge, and that may allow you to raise your price.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in Boise, and I'm thinking to myself, this is an interesting little experiment that I'd like to actually perform, because I can't imagine I'm getting 57% of the population.
No, maybe well, you have California. I bet you California's got to be 2-day shipping, and so that's still a third. I bet you might have close to a third of the population.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, thank you so much, Scott, for coming on the show and answering my many questions and helping to enlighten the audience on how to become a more successful Amazon reseller. Really appreciate it. You did mention that, I want to give you the opportunity to plug it. You have a business that helps people with reimbursements, I think you said. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. My opinion is people should just be aware of reimbursements that they're owed. Whether you use our service, Valence services, that's great. There are others. And I just really think you should, if you have FBA inventory, you could expect Amazon to reimburse you 1% of your sales. There probably is an additional % or 2, depending on the type of product. That if you identify in the reports, your damaged products that Amazon damaged in their warehouse and have yet to reimburse you, if you tell them about that, you'll see, just in a seller support case, you'll get money.
Yep.
And
I like getting money.
Yeah. This is true. Buy Boxer, the first 2 months that we used this service, started doing this in submitting cases, and we were able to really, using automation, successfully identify, which ones have not been reimbursed yet, where we've been damaged, and kind of doing a lot of ins and outs. Sometimes we're referencing, 10 different reports at a time to like really prove it. And we got about $100,000 each month of our first 2 months using this.
Wow.
So, there is a window. You can only look back 18 months. So if you've been in business for a few years, you probably should act sooner rather than later. And at the end of the day, like I'm not super ambitious about growing this services business to the moon, but there's 5-6 others. Test them out, find out which one's best for you. I know what.
What's the URL for yours?
valenceservices.com.
How do you spell that?
VALENCE. That's Valence services.com. And yeah.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for today. Again, Scott, thank you so much for making some time to come on the show.
Thank you. It's been great.